The stifling heat weighed heavily on the rat-infested alley, where several dumpsters overflowed with the city's careless abandon. Amidst the stench of rotting food and rusted metals, something unusual stirred. A faint groan, barely audible beneath the clamor of the busy streets. There, half buried under torn silks and shattered crystal, lay a man, his breathing shallow, his once majestic robes stained and torn. The Billionaire Sheikh, the epitome of power and wealth, reduced to a fragile silhouette of vulnerability, concealed in the refuse. In contrast to the golden glimmers caught in the tattered fabric, the surroundings were a world apart. The city's relentless hustle painted a grim picture. Broken neon lights flickering above cracked sidewalks. Stray dogs rummaging through piles of junk. The pungent aroma of decay mixing with distant cooking fires. This was the realm of Kareem, the poor recycler, whose hands were accustomed not to silk, but to the harsh textures of discarded life. His modest home, a cramped room with faded paint and threadbare curtains, stood several streets from the grandeur that once belonged to the man, now helpless before him. Kareem's eyes widened, heart pounding as he knelt beside the fallen stranger. He barely understood the man's wealth, only recognizing the unmistakable aura of dignity, even in ruin. Compassion stirred deep within him, conflicting with the instinct to preserve his own fragile existence. The thought of helping a man draped in such ruins filled him with confusion. Who was this sheikh, and why was he abandoned like trash? Yet there was no hesitation. Tenderly, Kareem gathered the sheikh, feeling the weight of both his body and the invisible burden cloaked in those blood-stained robes. Every motion spoke of fragility and strength intertwined. The sheikh's dark eyes fluttering open, shimmering with shock and silent pleas for mercy. Kareem's thick fingers brushed delicately over bruises and cuts, a stark contrast to the gold rings that adorned the sheikh's fingers, glinting as whispers of a life far removed from these shadowed streets. He carried the man through a labyrinth of narrow alleys until their refuge came into view. The old wooden door creaked as it opened, revealing a humble sanctuary filled with the scent of old books and fading hopes. As Kareem tended to the sheikh's wounds, his mind raced with swirling questions and fears. What dangers lurked behind the prince's fallen mask? Whispers of enemies, hidden fortunes, and veiled threats began to take shape, echoes from a world Kareem never knew. The presence of such grandeur in his forlorn home was a spark, igniting storms neither could foresee. Suddenly, footsteps echoed outside. A shadow detached itself from the darkness. Kareem stiffened, heart throttling in his chest. A voice, cold and commanding, slipped through the narrow door crack. "The sheikh belongs to us. Return him, or there will be consequences." Fear collided with resolve within Kareem's chest. He glanced at the sheikh's eyes, still flickering with vulnerable desperation, and knew the simple act of kindness had pulled them both into an abyss of danger. And before the next secret of this billionaire sheikh is uncovered, make sure you're part of our caravan of stories. Many destinies are yet to be written, and I don't want you to miss a single moment. Leave a like if the heart of this sheikh has already captivated you. Tell me in the comments. Where are you watching this saga from? And what twist do you expect next? Your passion for these dramas fuels our journey. Thank you for being with us. Kareem's breath hitched as the cold voice slipped through the crack in the door, slicing through the fragile calm that had settled over the small room. The towering shadows outside twisted into faceless threats in the dim light. His hand involuntarily tightened over the sheikh's wrist, feeling the faint pulse beneath the bandages. The weight of the man's ruined grandeur pressed heavily against his trembling resolve. The billionaire sheikh's dark eyes flickered open, meeting Kareem's gaze with a silent plea that shamed the fear knotting in the young man's chest. Those eyes, once the embodiment of authority, now revealed a vulnerability so profound it pierced Kareem's own heart. There was a story buried beneath the bruises. Tale of betrayal, power unmasked, and a man caught between worlds. Who are they? Kareem whispered, voice barely above a breath, his palms clammy but steady as he dabbed a rag to clean a trickle of blood at the corner of the sheikh's mouth. The sheikh's lips parted slightly, but no words came. Instead, his eyes darkened with shadowed memories, reflecting names and faces Kareem could only imagine. He had heard whispers in the winding alleys about the ruthless politics inside the palace walls, about enemies who lurked like vipers, waiting for the perfect strike. Yet to hold this man, broken and bleeding, was to grasp a living myth, a creature of silk robes and gold who now wore dust and despair. The narrow room was stifling, steeped in the scent of old books and sweat. Afar, cry from the silk-laden halls where the sheikh once ruled with iron grace. Kareem moved carefully, reacquainting himself with the crude tools of his humble care: oil, bandages, herbs for pain. Each touch was a rebellion against the decadence that the sheikh's ruined hands once summoned with a mere gesture. A sudden soft knock jolted Kareem's heart into a frantic beat. He pulled the tattered curtain aside, hesitating, then peered into the dim corridor. No one. The silence was thick, almost mocking, yet the warning, it lingered like an icy blade pressed beneath his ribs. This was no simple plea for mercy. The sheikh's enemies were casting long shadows over both their fates. Kareem's mind raced. Returning the sheikh meant death, of his dignity, perhaps even his life. Yet hiding him could ignite a war neither was prepared for. The complexity of this choice twisted inside him like the winding alleys outside, full of secrets and danger. But every instinct to flee clashed with the ember of compassion he could not extinguish. The sheikh's breathing grew uneven. Kareem rested his hand lightly over the fierce pulse beneath those golden rings, the last breath of opulence clinging to a fallen king. Suddenly, the sheikh's lips moved, the voice rough, hoarse but commanding, despite his weakness. Kareem, you must listen. The simplicity of the name, so foreign and so intimate from such powerful lips, startled Kareem into silence. The sheikh's eyes searched his face, pleading for trust, for understanding. They think I'm dead, he rasped. But my enemies, they don't know what I carry. The secret hidden beneath the palace, the key to my lineage, my power. If they find it, without me, everything will be lost. A shadow of pain crossed the Sheikh's face, deep and raw, before a flicker of fierce determination ignited behind his dark eyes. He struggled to sit upright, pain radiating with every movement. The contrast was brutal. The towering man reduced to this fragile figure, yet still a king in spirit. Karim assisted him gently, feeling the weight of responsibility settle like a stone in his chest. But why here? Why abandon yourself to these ruins? Karim asked, voice trembling with the burden of their shared destiny. The Sheikh's gaze drifted, lost in a distant memory. A betrayal closer than you imagine. A storm within my own bloodline. My trusted allies turned against me. I escaped with what little I could carry. But now I am hunted. Hunted like a common thief. Darkness deepened behind his eyes, as if the desert itself had carved sorrow into his soul. Karim found himself suddenly aware of the fragile line they walked, between hope and despair, survival and destruction. Hours passed quietly as Karim cleaned wounds and wrapped bruises, the two men bound by an invisible thread of fate. Outside, the city's pulse slowed with the coming night, but inside the room simmered with tension and unspoken fears. When the Sheikh's breathing steadied, he fixed Karim with a gaze that seethed with desperate resolve. You don't understand. If they take the scroll, the map hidden in my vault, not only will I be lost, but the entire emirate will fall. My people will suffer. My family legacy erased. Karim swallowed hard, heart pounding. The man before him was no mere fallen aristocrat. He was a guardian of a kingdom's future. And now that future rested precariously on two strangers in a forsaken room. A sudden crash echoed just outside. The door rattled violently as armored boots thundered down the corridor. Panic flared. Karim hissed, "They're coming." The Sheikh's eyes flashed with iron. "I will not die in the shadows. Help me stand." Karim hesitated only for a heartbeat before hauling the Sheikh upright. The old wooden door burst inwards, revealing men cloaked in black, faces veiled by shadows. The leader stepped forward, voice cold as desert night. "Sheikh, your time is over. Return with us, or your fate will be sealed." The Sheikh met the gaze unflinchingly, pain etched deep, but courage burning brighter. "You will not have me. Not yet." A tense silence swallowed the room as the invaders prepared for confrontation. Karim's hand brushed against the Sheikh's, a silent vow of solidarity. And as the moon cast silver on the grime-streaked walls, a faint but undeniable truth whispered in the air. The battle for the Sheikh's legacy had only just begun. One that would unravel secrets darker than the alleys that hid him. Somewhere deep within the palace, a hidden chamber waited, its doors locked by blood and lies. And within, the ultimate secret of the Billionaire Sheikh threatened to shatter every life it touched. Karim's pulse thundered in his ears as the door shattered, splinters spraying like harsh confetti into the dim room. The black-cloaked intruders swarmed forward, shadows of menace swallowing the fragile sanctuary. Yet in the center of it all, the billionaire sheikh stirred, his battered form rising not as a victim, but as a storm. Gathering force, his voice, gravelly yet unwavering, cut through the mounting chaos. "You forget who I am," the leader scoffed, stepping closer, the gleam of cold steel reflecting moonlight. "Sheikh, your empire crumbles. Surrender quietly, and perhaps mercy will be yours." Kareem's eyes narrowed, a fierce protectiveness flaring as he stood shield-like beside the sheikh. His rough hands clenched into fists, but it was the sheikh's gaze that arrested the attackers, a wild tempest of defiance and a flicker of old glory. Pain radiated with each movement as the sheikh steadied himself against the battered table. He limped toward the leader, every breath a rebellion, every step a testament. "Your mercy means nothing to those who betray," he rasped. "You will not break me." A tense silence pressed against the thin walls. Then chaos erupted, men lunging, voices rising, the scrape of boots on cracked floors. Kareem grabbed a rusted pipe from a corner, swinging with desperate precision, buying time. The sheikh's eyes searched the fleeting battle, locking with Kareem's in fierce gratitude. Despite the ruin, despite the fear, a raw bond sparked between them. Fragile, yet unyielding. Amid the frenzy, a piercing shout sliced through. "The scroll! Find the scroll!" Kareem's heart seized. The secret of the sheikh's lineage, the key to his power and fate, was the prize that could alter kingdoms. The attackers were not mere assassins, but hunters of a legacy concealed in shadows deeper than the decaying streets. Pushing Kareem aside with surprising strength, the sheikh staggered toward a loose floorboard beneath the faded rug. Pain stabbed at his ribs, but he moved with desperate urgency. Fingers trembling, he pried the board up, revealing a small, dust-covered chest beneath. Before he could retrieve the crucial item, a heavy boot descended, crashing onto his hand. A sharp cry escaped him, the metallic taste of blood biting harshly. Yet his resolve did not waver. The leader's voice echoed coldly. "Give us what belongs to us, or you will die broken and forgotten." Darkness curled at the edges of the sheikh's vision. Fear and fury entwined like serpents in his chest. But as the boot raised for another blow, his dark eyes flared with indomitable fire. Kareem lunged forward, gripping the attacker's arm, throwing him off balance. The room erupted into tussle, desperate and fierce. They were outmatched in numbers, but fueled by the raw urgency of survival and loyalty. In the midst of the brawl, a sudden thought pierced Kareem's mind. The sheikh was not just a figure of unimaginable wealth and power. He was a man cast into exile by treachery from within. The truth hovered between dusty shadows and flickering neon light. Betrayal was not just a whisper outside. It dwelled inside palace walls, poisoning hearts of those closest to the throne. Pain seared through the sheikh's side as he finally grasped the chest, clutching it like a lifeline. His breath came ragged, but purposeful. "Kareem, I need you to protect this at all costs," he whispered, lips rigid, but eyes burning with desperation. Kareem nodded, swallowing the lump that threatened to choke his words. "I will." They stepped back, backs pressed together, fighting off the relentless tide. The room trembled with the sounds of struggle and the unforgiving tick of fate. Then, as quickly as they came, the intruders faltered, a flicker of doubt or fear crossing their faces, their grip loosening in the face of unexpected resistance. A final roar from the Sheikh shattered the night's fragile balance. This chapter is far from over. In the stillness that followed, their breaths loud in the silence, Karim dared a glance at the chest, not just a box, but a vessel of salvation, danger, and uncertain destiny. Outside, the night wrapped the city in its velvet shroud, hiding secrets and silent watchers, and deep within the shadows, eyes glinting with malice and hunger, whispered a vow. The Sheikh's greatest enemy walks freely tonight, and the princess betrayed is closer than ever. The weight of those words sank into Karim's bones like a chilling wind. His gaze met the Sheikh's one last time before the distant echo of footsteps faded. They were no longer just protector and fallen king. They were two souls entwined in a war of power, secrets, and the fragile hope for redemption. Each heartbeat, a ticking countdown toward the unraveling storm. And somewhere, in the dark labyrinth of palatial corridors, the final piece waited silently, its revelation poised to change everything. The muffled sounds of retreating footsteps dissolved into the night, leaving a heavy silence thick with tension. Karim's breath shook beneath the weight of exhaustion and adrenaline. The tiny chest, pressed against the Sheikh's side, felt like the fragile heartbeat of a world on the brink. Blood still stained the dusty floor, a bitter reminder that the battle had only paused, not ended. The Sheikh sank against the wall, pain flickering like sharp embers behind his dark eyes. Silk robes shredded and dirt-covered, the last gauntlet of his former power felt heavier than ever. Yet beneath the bruises and scars, a fierce resolve burned, raw and unyielding. Karim crouched beside him, every muscle tense, mind racing with plans half-formed and questions that dared no answer. The city beyond their refuge whispered of dangers yet unseen. An empire's shadow stretched long, threatening to claim them both. The scroll, the key to a future none could yet grasp, rested concealed, an ancient promise wrapped in faded leather and iron clasps. I thought I could outrun them, the Sheikh's voice rasped, each word a victory torn from pain. But betrayal is a storm that finds you no matter where you hide. Karim's eyes locked onto the Sheikh's, seeing not the legend, but the fragile humanity beneath the veneer of gold and power. You can't stay here. You can't stay here. Not like this. They will come again. Harder, faster. A grim smile flickered, almost forgotten in the tempest of agony and fading strength. Then that is why you must move me beyond this wretched place. To the desert, to the lands untouched by treachery. They will never expect it. The quiet determination was a fragile lifeline, lyrical against the acrid air of decay. Karim's hands trembled as he adjusted the Sheikh's support, feeling the paradox of power and vulnerability in that touch, the burden of a kingdom and the frailty of flesh entwined. Suddenly, a soft sound drew their attention, the faint rustle of fabric from the shadows beyond the doorway. Both men froze, senses sharp beneath the cloak of darkness. The city's unforgiving night held its breath. A slender silhouette emerged, hesitating beneath the glow of a dying street lamp. Her eyes, wide and filled with unshed tears, searched the room until they found the Sheikh, a breathtaking vision caught between fear and fierce loyalty. "Layla," the Sheikh breathed, voice faltering with disbelief and yearning. Karim rose slowly, protective, as the woman stepped closer. Her hands, delicate yet determined, reached for the Sheikh's battered face, tracing the swollen bruises with desperate tenderness. "I thought I lost you forever," Layla whispered, her voice cracking. "They told me that you were dead." The Sheikh's pain smile deepened, haunted by the terrible solitude of exile. "They lied. But now, everything depends on trust. On us." Tension rippled between them, a fragile thread stretched taut by pain, secrets, and unspoken promises. Layla's gaze hardened, fierce yet vulnerable. "I have my own battles, Sheikh. The court conspires under the veil of night. Your enemies, they poison. Minds twist truths. If you don't act soon, your legacy dies with you." Karim listened, heart pounding, sensing the magnitude of forces converging around the fragile trio. The summer night pressed heavy, the scent of desert jasmine mixed with dust and gunmetal, intoxicating and threatening. "What haven do we have?" Karim finally asked, voice low but steady. "Where can we keep the Sheikh safe and the scroll?" Layla's lips tightened. "There is an oasis beyond the eastern dunes, a sanctuary few dare approach. It is hidden, protected by those loyal to the true bloodline. But the journey is perilous. Hostile tribes, mercenaries hired to hunt the Sheikh, and the desert itself." The Sheikh's gaze darkened. "Then we have no choice. We must go before dawn." The fragile hope of escape flickered, tempered by the cold certainty of the storm gathering behind them. Karim's instincts screamed, not only to flee, but to fight, to shield the Sheikh and the whispers of an empire not yet broken. As Layla gathered healing herbs and supplies from her small satchel, she cast a glance toward Karim, a silent acknowledgement bridging the gap between a poor recycler and a princess besieged. "The palace is not just walls and servants," she said softly. "It's a nest of vipers. The greatest betrayal comes not from enemies outside, but from the blood that runs beneath the throne." The Sheikh winced as Karim helped him to his feet. Blood welled beneath the bandages, but the fire in his eyes burned anew, a wildfire refusing to be extinguished. Outside, the distant roar of an engine shattered the uneasy quiet. Heads turned instinctively, muscles tensed for a hunt resumed. Pain coursed through the Sheikh's frame, but there was no surrender. He clung to the fragile thread of destiny woven by his lineage and the devotion of those who still dared to stand with him. "Karim," the Sheikh murmured, his voice a raw promise. "I trusted you with my life. Now, you must guard this secret not just from the world, but from those who wear the faces of friends." Karim swallowed his fear, feeling the weight of a crown, heavier than gold, settle onto his shoulders. "I swear it." And then, without warning, the faintest whisper slid through the cracked window. The voice of a traitor concealed in shadows, chilling the room. "Sheikh's blood is weaker than we believed. The scroll may be worthless." Silence engulfed them. The Sheikh's eyes flared, burning with the fierce truth that would shatter illusions and betrayals alike. No, the power is real, but the enemy is closer than ever. Outside, the desert wind carried a new threat, a promise of treachery, not from afar, but from within. And amidst the gathering storm, the fragile bond between the fallen sheikh, the fearless Layla, and the unlikely guardian Karim would be tested beyond endurance. Because the next betrayal would not come from the shadows cast by enemies, but from the brightest light of all, the family that should have protected him. The fragile room grew colder still as dawn's first slivers of light fought through grime-coated windows. The air was thick with the heavy scent of sweat, healing herbs, and tension, an uneasy truce in the midst of chaos. Karim's hands trembled as he fortified the Sheikh's makeshift bandages, fighting to suppress the knots twisting his stomach. The Sheikh's breath was shallow, but his eyes burned with the fever of unyielding resolve. "The desert isn't just sand and heat," he whispered, voice cracked but fierce. "It holds secrets, fates wrapped in silence. That oasis," he said, nodding weakly toward the worn map Karim had found beneath the rug, "is more than refuge. It's my last hope." Karim swallowed, the weight of a promise settling over him like an iron chain. "I will get you there," he vowed, voice steady, despite the unspoken dread clawing at his gut. "We'll face whatever lies beyond." Outside, shadows moved with predatory silence. The night had offered no rest, no mercy, only the poisonous breath of enemies who knew how to strike from within. Betrayal was a poison seeping through the veins of the emirate, threatening to choke the heart of a kingdom long, built on gold and blood. Layla stepped forward, her face a fragile mask of courage that masked seas of fear. Her fingers traced the jagged scars that marred the Sheikh's noble features, a touch both tender and desperate. "The court's treachery runs deeper than the palace walls you fled," she said softly, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Whispers tell of alliances shattered, of knives hidden behind silks." The Sheikh's gaze darkened, the distant storm of his lineage calling him like a siren's cry. "My bloodline carries burdens no man should bear," he murmured, every word a thread, pulling him back into a war he had sought to escape. "But if I fall, those who remain will be swallowed by darkness." Karim paced the cramped room, mind reaching for strategies against foes he had never imagined. Royal assassins, mercenaries cloaked in loyalty, vipers disguised as brothers. "We leave before the sun rises," he said, urgency sharpening his tone. "The city will not be safe for either of us, not with the secret you carry." The Sheikh's hand clenched around the small chest, the iron clasps cold but unyielding beneath his bruised fingers. It seemed an impossible talisman, too delicate for the weight of a kingdom, yet too vital to be lost. "This chest holds my future," he said quietly. Within it, the scroll that binds the emirate's destiny. Layla's eyes flicked toward the narrow doorway as a soft, almost imperceptible sound brushed against the silence. Instinctively, Karim moved, muscles taut and senses sharpened by desperation. But it was only the breeze, at least for now. "They'll come again," Layla warned, voice thick with warning. "This city breeds shadows, like venomous snakes. But the desert? The desert will hide us if we are cautious. The Sheikh's gaze lifted to meet hers, a flicker of bittersweet hope igniting in the depths of his pain. Then the desert will be my throne once more, he said, voice raw with determination. And those who betrayed me will face a reckoning written in sand and blood. Karim felt a rush of admiration laced with fear. Here was a man who wielded power far beyond gold, an empire carved into the very marrow of his soul. Yet beneath that regal cruelty lay a desperate vulnerability that neither the gold nor silk could ever mask. The fragile alliance of the three felt suddenly heavier, woven by fate, trust, and the urgent pulse of survival. Outside, distant sounds of the city waking rose faintly. The first call to prayer, a vendor's early prize, the restless stir of a world oblivious to the secret wars waging in shadowed alleys. You know who among the palace guards still remained loyal? Karim asked, voice low, eyes flicking between Layla and the Sheikh. Layla's brow furrowed. Just a handful, those who owe allegiance to the true bloodline, like me. But even they are watched. We'll have to move in silence. Pain twisted the Sheikh's face as he shifted, the wounds a cruel testament to his fall from grace. I once ruled with iron, he hissed through clenched teeth. Now, I am forced to crawl through dust, hiding like a thief. But this night will end. Karim hesitated, then stepped closer, voice firm. You're not alone anymore. Whatever comes next, we face it together. In that moment, the Sheikh's dark eyes gleamed, not with arrogance, but with the fragile flicker of a man fighting to reclaim everything stolen from him. Suddenly, the quiet shattered. A sharp, urgent sound cut through the thin walls, the unmistakable rattling of keys against metal. Karim's heart slammed against his ribs as the door handle began to turn. They froze, breaths caught, every muscle wound tight as a drawn bow. The door creaked open slowly, revealing not masked enemies, but a figure clad in midnight silk, her face veiled, but her eyes ablaze with a secret fire. Layla, the Sheikh breathed, disbelief and hope warring in his tone. She lifted her veil just enough to reveal a scar tracing the line of her jaw, a mark of survival and silent rebellion. I come with a truth no one in the palace dares speak, she whispered, stepping inside as the door clicked shut behind her. The greatest betrayal is closer than we feared, and it wears the face of family. The room seemed to tilt beneath the weight of her words. Karim's pulse thundered against the walls of his chest. The Sheikh's gaze hardened, shadows of pain and fury swirling within. In the silence of kings, blood can cut deeper than any blade, he said, voice low and deadly. An unspoken storm gathered in the small refuge, the past ready to collide with the present, and destinies to be rewritten in fire. And somewhere, far above, beyond the gilded towers and the endless desert sands, the true enemy watched and waited for the moment to strike the final blow. The fragile sanctuary held its breath, hanging on a precipice between salvation and ruin. because in this game of power and blood, no one was untouchable. And the next betrayal would come not from the shadows, but from the light that shone too close to the throne. The dawn struggled through grime-streaked windows, casting pale light over the cramped room where the weight of unspoken fears hung thicker than the dust. Karim's breath was shallow, each exhale trembling with the threads of exhaustion and adrenaline that refused to untangle. The sheikh sat propped against the cold wall, his silhouette a jagged contrast of ruined silk and enduring will. His dark eyes, smoldering beneath bruises, darted around the room as if searching for ghosts only he could see. Layla knelt nearby, her delicate fingers moving with urgent gentleness, wiping a thin film of sweat from the sheikh's brow. Her gaze flickered to Karim, a silence heavy with mutual understanding passing unspoken between them. Outside, the city began to stir. In oblivion, unaware that the fate of empires pulsed beneath its fragile surface. "The desert awaits," the sheikh rasped, voice hoarse but fierce. "We have hours before the sun swallows the sky." Karim nodded, feeling the gravity of that promise weigh on his shoulders like the chains of a hidden crown. "I will move whatever we can carry. The fewer tracks, the better." Layla's eyes darkened with resolve. The loyal tribes to the east will face suspicion and danger. "We must be ghosts, unseen, unheard." A sharp creak at the door snapped every instinct into heightened alert. Karim's hand went to the rusted dagger tucked into his belt, muscles coiling like a spring. But the door opened to reveal only a figure cloaked in the shadowed folds of night, a messenger, breath catching like a whisper. "Orders from the palace." The man said, voice grave and clipped, producing a sealed envelope glistening with the royal emblem. The sheikh's fingers trembled as he took it, breaking the wax with slow deliberation. The unfolded parchment bore words that sliced deeper than any blade. "They send warning," he said, eyes burning with a cold fire. "The betrayal within runs deeper than we feared. They know more than I imagined." Layla's gaze sharpened. "Who else carries knowledge of your exile, your secret?" "The palace whispers. Even some I trusted have turned." Karim's heartbeat hammered. The fragile sanctuary was no longer safe. The shadows followed their every breath. "We leave at first light," he said. No hesitation. Pain flickered across the sheikh's face as he leaned heavily against Layla, her steady presence a balm amid the chaos. "Karim, you must promise me one thing." "Anything," Karim whispered, swallowing the lump lodged in his throat. "Protect the scroll. Even if I fall, even if my blood is spilled." The room seemed to constrict as those words settled like stones between them. The scroll, wrapped in faded leather, was the fragile heart of a kingdom's hope, the last link to power, stolen by treachery. Suddenly, the sound of voices approached, low and urgent, crawling up the stairs with quiet menace. Karim's fingers tightened into a fist, nails biting into his palms. "They come again," Layla hissed, eyes scanning the dim corridor beyond the door's edge. The sheikh's breath hitched, pain curling through his ribs like fire. He gritted his teeth, a primal snarl curling from cracked lips. I will not be their prisoner. Karim helped him to his feet, supporting the weight of the man who was both king and castaway. Each step was a battle, every movement a defiance of broken bones and shattered trust. Outside, the streets writhed awake under the harsh glare of the rising sun, streets that masked the venom lurking in the heart of loyalty and family alike. As they slipped into the shadows, Layla whispered urgently, "The path through the eastern dunes is treacherous. Mercenaries hired by those closest to the throne hunt for you. Even the wind carries their whispers." Karim's hands brushed against the rough fabric of his worn jacket, thoughts racing like desert storms. How can we trust anyone? Trust is a luxury we no longer have, the Sheikh answered, gaze dark and haunted. But loyalty is forged in fire, in moments like these. The three of them moved silently through narrow alleys, the oppressive heat giving way to the chill of early morning. Each breath was a prayer, each glance a testament to fragile hope. A sudden shout shattered the fragile quiet, a distant gunshot echoing like thunder. Karim's pulse leapt. "Ambush," Layla breathed, urgency trailing from her voice. The Sheikh's eyes flared, fierce and unyielding. "We cannot falter now." They broke into a run, silhouettes slipping between crumbling walls and flickering streetlights. Every step pushing the knife edge of survival. Karim's mind flashed to the chest beneath the floorboards, the scroll inside a precious, deadly secret. The line between salvation and destruction had never been thinner. As the city faded behind them, the desert stretched out, a looming expanse, both cruel and merciful. Here, beneath endless skies, the Sheikh would find no comfort in gold or silk, only the raw, unrelenting truth of blood and betrayal. Ahead, Layla paused, voice barely a whisper. "There's something you must know. Someone we thought ally is the serpent at the gate." The Sheikh's breath caught, pain and fury igniting a storm behind those haunted eyes. "A traitor among my own blood." The desert wind carried the bitter promise. The war for his soul, his legacy, and the very heart of the emirate had only just begun. And in the distance, beneath the endless stars, a figure watched, silent, waiting. The final strike, poised to shatter everything they fought to preserve. The first rays of dawn crept through the grime-speckled window, painting the cramped room in pale gold. The air was heavy with urgency, each breath a fragile promise, as Karim helped the Sheikh settle against the cold stone wall. The man's once imperious silhouette seemed smaller now, worn silk clinging to bruised flesh. But his dark eyes burned with defiant fire beneath swollen lids. Layla knelt beside him, her slender fingers trembling as they pressed a damp cloth to the Sheikh's temple. Her own eyes glistened, a storm of unshed tears and steely resolve. Outside, the desert wind stirred, carrying with it the scent of arid sand mingled with faint jasmine. "The desert's silence will be our shield for now," the Sheikh whispered, voice rasping like dry leaves. "But the betrayal behind palace walls, it chokes deeper than the desert's heat." Karim's gaze flicked between Layla and the Sheikh. The weight in the chest pressed heavier with every heartbeat. "We must move before the city awakens fully. Their reach grows with the dawn." Layla nodded, folding a worn map carefully before tucking it into the folds of the Sheikh's tattered robe. Only a handful still remain loyal. The court is a nest of vipers, each strike more venomous than the last. The Sheikh's hands clenched the small chest, wrapped tightly by leather straps, their precious secret hidden beneath faded iron clasps. His lips pressed into a thin line, jaw clenched against pain. If this chest is lost, everything I've fought for will crumble to dust. Karim's fingers hovered over the clasp, the weight of unspoken promises anchoring him. No one will take it from you, not while I'm breathing. A shadow moved at the edge of the doorway. All three stiffened as a soft rustle broke the fragile stillness. Layla's eyes narrowed, fierce protectiveness blazing. It was not an enemy, at least not yet. A figure stepped cautiously inside, veiled in midnight silk, her gaze sharp and urgent. "Amira," the Sheikh breathed, surprise flickering beneath pain. The woman lifted her veil partly, revealing a pale scar tracing the curve of her wide cheekbone, a whisper of battles fought in silence. Her voice, low and steady, carried the weight of a secret kept too long. "The palace grows darker," she said. "The web tightens. Your enemies know you're alive, and they bring a new betrayal, one closer than we dared imagine." Layla's fingers twitched, fists balled in silent tension. Karim's pulse thundered as unspoken fears crystallized between them. "Blood runs through their veins," Amira continued, eyes unwavering. "But honor does not. Watch your own shadows closely. The dagger may come from within." The Sheikh's gaze darkened, pain and fury coiling beneath the surface like a desert storm. "I trusted blood more than swords. I was a fool." A heavy silence fell, the distant call of the muezzin wove through the air, a haunting hymn beneath this clandestine gathering. Karim broke the silence, voice low but firm. "Then trust only what you see and those who stand with you now." The Mira's eyes flicked to Karim, a spark of wary respect igniting briefly. The scavenger and the princess, both holding the throne's fate in their hands. Strange allies for a fallen king. Layla's lips quirked in a ghost of a smile, but the steel beneath remained. "In desperation, we find strength." Pain laced the Sheikh's breath as he grimaced, shifting to ease the sting in his ribs. "The road ahead is treacherous. Each step could be our last." The room seemed to contract, shadows dancing tighter around them. Beyond the cracked windows, the city stirred, a beast awakening, indifferent to the fragile lives caught in its maw. Karim glanced toward the door. "They'll come again, faster, with fewer mistakes." Amira stepped closer, her voice a whisper sharpened by urgency. "The traitor's mask will slip soon, but until then, deception rules the court." Layla's eyes darkened, haunted by betrayal. Even the palace walls bleed secrets. The Sheikh's voice grew resolute, a command whispered like a prayer. "We leave at sunset. The desert awaits, a final throne." Karim's fists clenched, heart pounding against ribs like a caged bird. "Then we prepare. We fight, for the scroll, for the legacy." A sudden creak from the hallway snapped every nerve taut. The three froze, breaths caught on the razor's edge of fear. A soft shuffle approached. Karim's hands moved instinctively to the worn dagger by his side. But the door swung open gently, revealing a slender figure cloaked in twilight. His breath caught as Amira greeted the newcomer with a tense nod. "You promised loyalty," she hissed, voice cracked. "Still, one amongst you carries poison." The figure stepped forward, eyes cold as the desert night. "Trust is the first casualty," he said, "and betrayal, the final act." The Sheikh's eyes, sharp despite the exhaustion, fixed on the stranger. A sudden movement, a glint of steel, and chaos erupted. Karim lunged, blocking a slash meant for Amira. The clash ringing through the room like thunder. The Sheikh rose, swaying but determined, his voice a growl. "You dare threaten my sanctuary?" The intruder smirked, voice dripping contempt. "You are but a shadow now, Sheikh. Your empire crumbled." Pain flared in the Sheikh's side, but his eyes burned fiercer. "Empires rise from ashes, remember that." Another clash, bodies jostling in desperate struggle. Layla sprang forward, her hands seizing a fallen dagger as Karim wrestled the attacker to the ground. Through the turmoil, the Sheikh lunged toward the chest, fingers trembling but resolute, clasping it tight. A voice screamed above the chaos. "Find the scroll, it ends tonight." Their sanctuary cracked, the walls closing in with every heartbeat. Blood mingled with dust and sweat as the battle raged, fierce and unrelenting. Finally, with a roar of defiance, the Sheikh threw back the nearest attacker. Eyes blazing with the fire of a man reborn. "We will not break," he declared, each word a hammering echo through the small room. As the intruders faltered, hesitation spreading like a crack in their confidence, Karim helped the Sheikh stagger back, the chest clutched to his chest like a lifeline. Silence fell abruptly. The only sound was ragged breathing and the distant wail of the desert wind. The Sheikh's gaze locked with Karim's, fierce and unyielding. "This war is far from over." Outside, beyond the veil of dawn and desert sands, a watching figure moved through shadows, silent, patient, and hungry for the final strike. And the fragile sanctuary held its breath, poised on the brink of a reckoning that would shatter the thin veil between power, blood, and betrayal. The night had deepened into a velvet shadow when the three figures moved from the cramped room into the biting chill of dawn's first breath. The Sheikh's steps faltered, each one a slow rebellion against the pain gnawing at his ribs. But his eyes burned with a fire that no wound could shadow. Karim steadied him with quiet strength, a rock amid tempest, while Layla's gaze cut through the dim light, sharp as a blade, poised to strike. The city behind them was a labyrinth of dangers, every whispered secret and lurking shadow a reminder of the enemies waiting just beyond their fragile sanctuary. Yet ahead stretched the vast desert, vast and indifferent, promising concealment but no mercy. Each breath they drew was weighted with the knowledge that betrayal bled deeper than any wound. The palace, once a fortress of silk and gold, had become a cage lined with vipers. Faces once trusted, now stalked in silence. Their loyalty, a veil for treachery. Layla tightened her grip on the worn map. The ink faded but desperate with hope. "The oasis is more than a hiding place," she said softly. "It is a bastion protected by those who still honor the true bloodline. But the journey will test every ounce of our resolve." The sheikh nodded, the faintest grimace crossing his bruised features. "My enemies have reached into every corner of this city. I am a ghost to them now. But this blood will not spill without fight." Kareem's gaze fell to the chest, the weathered leather straps securing their fragile salvation. "No matter what comes, we keep this safe. It holds more than scrolls and ink. It holds the Empire's soul." A cold breeze stirred, carrying with it the haunting scent of jasmine and dust. The desert whispered promises of freedom, but also threats shaped by shifting dunes and merciless suns. The horizon beckoned, but the past clung like chains. As they slipped silently into the shadows of the early morning, an uneasy silence stretched taut between them. The delicate balance of trust was their only armor against the treachery that festered in the hearts they once called family. Suddenly, a distant howl fractured the stillness. Kareem froze, senses sharpened by months of survival. "They're not far behind." The sheikh's eyes glinted with fierce resolve, aching but unbroken. "Then we do not stop. The desert is waiting, but so is death." They quickened their pace, the crunch of sand and broken stones underfoot echoing in the vast emptiness. Layla moved with practiced grace, eyes scanning the horizon for signs of danger. Kareem's mind raced, mapping potential risks, already calculating how to divert any hunters trailing them. The weight of the scroll seemed to pulse against the sheikh's chest, a silent drumbeat of hope and doom intertwined. Every heartbeat was a reminder. If it fell into the wrong hands, the emirate's fate would be sealed in ruin. A sudden rustle to their side made all three halt. Shadows shifted beneath the ghostly light of a dying moon. A figure stepped forward, cloaked but unmistakable. "Amira," the sheikh breathed, pain, relief, and suspicion swirling in his voice. Her scarred face was pale but resolute. "The palace grows darker every hour," she warned. "Your enemies move like shadows in daylight. The traitor within is bolder than ever." Layla's eyes narrowed, muscles coiling. "We cannot trust anyone but each other." Amira's gaze flickered with grim certainty. "Not even those who share your blood." Her words cut deeper than any steel. The sheikh's jaw clenched. "Betrayal is a poison I drank freely once. I will not let it consume me again." Kareem's voice was firm, though laced with unease. "Then we move as one. The desert will either shield us or bury us." Before they could speak again, thunderous sounds erupted behind them, footsteps pounding through the alleyway, closer, relentless. "The palace has sent their hounds," Layla whispered, urgency sharpening her tone. Panic was a distant flame. Here, only determination remained. The sheikh's hand tightened instinctively around the chest, its iron clasps biting cold but steady. "We cannot outrun what we do not understand," he said, voice gravelly but resolute. "But we will face it together." Kareem stepped protectively beside him, muscles tense, eyes blazing with newfound loyalty. Layla pulled her veil higher, shadows cloaking her like armor. The three slipped into a narrow passage cut through ancient stone, where the desert wind whispered of forgotten promises and silent wars. Behind them, shouts echoed, growing closer. The air thickened with fear, cold and sharp. The sheikh paused, turning to face the rising sun with a gaze defiant and proud. "This is my kingdom," he declared softly, "built on blood, betrayal, and love, and I will reclaim it, not as a pawn, but as a king." A fleeting smile brushed Layla's lips, a fragile beacon amid darkness. Kareem's heart pounded, every nerve alight with the undeniable truth. The greatest battle was yet to come. And as they vanished into the desert's deadly embrace, the wind carried a whispered warning. The crown's shadow conceals a deeper wound, one that no blade can mend. Behind the veil of night, a solitary figure watched from the palace's highest tower. His eyes gleamed, not with mercy, but with the cold calculation of a serpent poised to strike. The war for the billionaire Sheikh's soul and his empire had only just begun. The first golden rays of dawn spilled through the dusty windows, casting long beams of light that stretched across the worn stone floor. The cramped room, once thick with tension and whispered fears, now held a fragile stillness, as if the very walls exhaled relief. The sheikh rested against the cold surface, his breathing steady but shallow. Bruises darkened his cheeks, and the tattered silk clung to his form like remnants of a forgotten glory. Yet in his dark eyes burned a fierce flame, tempered by nights of pain and battles fought within and without. Layla's gentle hand cupped his face, her touch both balm and promise. "We leave with the sunset," she said softly, her voice woven with unwavering resolve. "The desert waits to reclaim you and your rightful place." Kareem stood nearby, the weight of loyalty heavy upon him. His fingers brushed the leather straps of the chest, tightly clasped in the sheikh's trembling grasp. The empire's fragile heartbeat. He vowed quietly, voice steady despite the storm inside him. Outside, the city stirred, unaware that its fate now depended on the swift flight of 3 souls, bound by trust, betrayal, and hope. They moved carefully through deserted alleys, shadows stretching and retreating with the rising sun. Each step echoed with the knowledge of enemies lurking too close, hunger for power hidden beneath familiar smiles. The palace's loyal snakes had revealed their true faces, yet the sheikh had found unlikely guardians in this humble recycler and the fierce princess. Hours passed like fragile breaths as they reached the edge where stone ceded to sand. There, beneath an endless sky rippling softly with dawn's warmth, Layla unfolded a worn map and traced a path with slender fingers. "Beyond the eastern dunes lies the oasis," she murmured, eyes burning with a fusion of hope and wariness. "Few dare seek it, but it hides those who honor the true bloodline. There, you will be safe." The sheikh's pain was raw, each movement bittersweet, yet determination solidified like desert rock in his gaze. "The palace betrayed me. Those I trusted clawed at my crown, but I will not let their venom consume the emirate." Kareem's voice was steady as the wind, carrying a fierce resolve that bolstered them all. "We will protect this secret, your lineage, your legacy, no matter what storms arise." As the first heated gusts began to stir the endless sands, Layla turned to the sheikh. Her eyes glistened with tears unspilled and silent prayers. You are not alone anymore. Together, we will reclaim what was stolen. A brief, fragile smile lifted the corners of the Sheikh's cracked lips. This desert will be my throne once again, not built on gold, but on truth and loyalty. They stepped into the embrace of the dunes, the soft crunch of sand beneath their feet, a metronome of unfolding destiny. Nightfall wrapped them in its cool shadows when suddenly, silence shattered with the snap of a twig. Blades were drawn, and figures emerged, mercenaries sent by the palace. Their faces masks of cold intent. Yet the three stood united, backs pressed tight, hearts unyielding in the face of this renewed assault. The Sheikh's voice rose, low and commanding, a royal roar reborn from defeat. You will find no prey here. Blows fell like thunder, but courage blazed like fire. Karim fought with raw desperation, Layla with fierce grace, and the Sheikh with the slow but relentless power of a fallen king's rage. In the heat of battle, the chest caught the moonlight, its iron clasp gleaming like a beacon of hope. The assailant's fury was met with a wall forged by loyalty and love. The Sheikh's legacy guarded not by gold, but by those who dared to stand beside him. When the last attacker fled, silence fell once more, filled with ragged breaths and the steady pulse of survival. The Sheikh's gaze locked onto Karim and Layla, fierce gratitude and newfound peace shining through the exhaustion. With you, I have found strength I thought lost. Layla gently pressed the heaviest truth between them, bonds formed in the fiercest trials. We carry not only a secret, but a promise to rebuild, to heal. Karim nodded, the weight of his simple oath transformed into something sacred. No matter what the future reveals, I swear to protect you and all you stand for. Days melted into weeks as the oasis enveloped them in sanctuary. The desert stars shone silent witness to their recovery, to plans whispered beneath scented breezes and hopes rekindled like embers fanned back to a fiery glow. The palace's dark shadows slowly receded, their venom diluted by the steadfast loyalty of those who reclaimed the truth. The traitors were unveiled, justice weaving through the courts like a cleansing flame, restoring honor to the rightful bloodline. In the heart of the oasis, the Sheikh and Layla stood beside a blossoming garden, flowers fragile yet fierce, bursting forth from the arid earth like the resilience of their love. The narrow sweep of Karim's smile met theirs, a quiet affirmation that from the dust, something new and enduring had grown. The Sheikh lifted Layla's hand, his dark eyes shimmering not just with power, but with the tender light of a man reborn. Together, he promised, voice steady and warm, we will build a future worthy of this sacred land. The breeze carried their laughter, soft and free, mingling with the desert's eternal song. Beneath the vast tapestry of stars, the past lay behind them, a closed chapter sealed by sacrifice and truth. Ahead, the horizon glowed with a dawn not just of day, but of hope. A legacy forged in love, protected by loyalty, and destined to endure beyond the shifting sands. And in the peace that followed the storm, the billionaire Sheikh's heart beat steady once more. No longer alone, no longer broken, but whole and profoundly free.